What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video coming at you with Kullervo builds and review. He's the 53rd regular Warframe, where again DE played it safe, where his abilities can be broken but with some limitations. He has a very interesting kit and some abilities might feel familiar to a certain degree, and even have abilities resembling characters from other popular video games and series. Where to farm this frame? There are two ways. One is during the limited time event, which is currently available for the first 2 weeks, called Kullervo's Hold, which requires 5 Pathos clamps to access. As of normal progression, he is an additional boss fight that you can access during the anger, sorrow, and fear spirals within the Deviri experience and the lone story mode. Once you're done with the main bounty objectives, you will get an additional objective to engage Kullervo. You can fight him before or after the worm fight. Pull up to Kullervo's Hold, talk to the warden chillin' up top, and begin the fight. The encounter has 3 phases, 2 slightly not easy. Once you're done with the mission, you get rewarded with a resource called Kullervo's Bane, which can be used to purchase him from the Deviri vendor. So, what is Kullervo classified as? He is a hybrid Warframe, where he's a weapon specialist and ability DPS, and is the 3rd Warframe to have no shields, but given a small health pool. So he's not an Inaros, because he actually has useful abilities. Onto his passive, a very useful and neutral passive. He gives every melee weapon 75% heavy attack efficiency and 100% heavy attack wind-up speed, which ties into his first ability, Wrathful Advance. This ability has 2 activations, Quick Tap and Hold Cast. The Quick Tap will have him charge a heavy attack using the mods on your weapon. During and performing this charge attack, your melee gets a massive crit chance increase. After the heavy attack, you remain with this crit for a certain duration. This crit buff is an absolute crit chance increase, meaning it is applied before mods, aka flat crits. This crit buff scales with strength, and how long it lasts depends on your duration. At base, you're at tier 2 crit, which is 200%, and this 200 is added onto your weapon's base crits. Once you reach 200% strength, you're at tier 4 crits. This means you do not have to mod for crit chance on your melee weapon if you're using his first ability. And his Hold Cast is the same thing but allows you to choose where to teleport to. However, what's unique about this version is that you can teleport to any location even without enemies, unlike the Quick Tap mode. Reminder, this ability will have all your weapons perform a heavy attack, meaning it will consume your built-up combo. And yes, this first ability can activate incarnate modes and turns all melee weapons into physical contact heavy attacks, meaning it's not that great with glaives. Another thing, there seems to be a bug with Kullervo's invert tap hold settings currently. So if you set it to inverted, you can use both forms of his first ability as quick tap. So you can have him teleport across the map like Nova by just quick tapping the ability. And on top of that, this ability is also his Helminth with a 50% stat reduction. Here's another cool tip. You can cast your first ability into the ground next to you to get the crit chance buff, and use other unique heavy attacks like glaives or other weapons that have projectiles, just to get that free red crit. Moving on to his worst ability, Recompense. Kullervo sends out a volley of daggers outwards that have a delay before they hit anything. Enemies hit with these daggers heal Kullervo, grant him combo counter, and provide him overguard if he's fully healed up. This overguard stacks up to a maximum of 5,000. Think of overguard as an additional health bar similar to Rhino's Iron Skin, which grants him damage and CC immunity as long as he has this up. The daggers are capped at 10 and do not scale with anything else. Now, what makes this ability bad? This overguard gets shredded way too quickly. If the daggers do not hit enemies, they will damage Kullervo, like actually hurt him. For those thinking this is high risk, high reward, it isn't, don't worry. For others thinking that this could be a great tool to proc Arcane Avenger, no. But yes, you can proc Avenger with this ability, however, there's a massive delay with the daggers before they damage you, and the daggers will only hurt you if there are no enemies around you. Otherwise, they will instantly track to the nearest enemies. Plus, even if you have Overguard, you can still trigger Arcane Avenger if enemies attack you. The combo gain is barely noticeable. Just hit enemies with your melee or chain in your melee strikes with this ability. Even though Overguard grants CC immunity, you're not guaranteed to have it up 100% of the time, as it gets shredded way too quickly. And even though you're able to activate adaptation while Overguard is up, it doesn't work with Overguard. But once Overguard is down, it's good to have some built-up damage reduction before you reactivate the ability, so you just don't instantly die. Collective Curse, the third ability. This is similar to Mark for Death. Kinda, but better. You send out a cursing wave which has travel time. When it hits enemies, it staggers them briefly, and targets that are hit become tethered to each other. Enemies share a portion of the damage dealt to one of the tethered targets. This damage is a continuous loop of damage that can overlap on itself. This ability has exponential scaling, which allows AoE damage to scale multiplicatively. This tether does not spread status effects, but rather the damage of the status effect. And the wave requires direct line of sight. The damage spread scales with strength, starting off at 50% at base, capping out to 100 with 200% strength. Range affects the travel distance, but not the angle of which it hits enemies. This ability paired with his first makes you ignore any issues you would have with melee follow-through, as all the damage is shared when you're at 100% damage spread. And if you do play Genshin Impact, this resembles Nahida's elemental skill. The fourth ability, Storm of UKKO, sends down a rain of daggers that deal damage over time. The daggers fall randomly, hit anything that's within the area of effect, and staggers enemies. These rain of daggers deal slash damage and force proc bleeds, but the bleeds have a cap of 12 procs. The ability by itself is underwhelming, but it can scale even further by applying viral procs and cursing enemies. Alright, now that you know how he works, let's take a look at how I've built him. I've got two amazing builds for you guys to try out that'll have you enjoy him quite a lot and feel like he's a bit overpowered. But first, the requirements of these builds. 2 red Archon Shards for 20% strength. This is to balance out the strength requirements on builds. Magus Anomaly, a pilot arcane to help dragon enemies towards you within a 30-meter radius every time you perform a transference. A Panzer Phyla to help you with healing, survivability, and energy issues thanks to the synth mods paired with Equilibrium, while also spreading viral procs and being a companion that doesn't die. The first build is focused around his first ability. Take a melee weapon that suits your playstyle. Just remember, all attacks when using his first ability are heavy attacks, and if you're put off by some weapons wind up, just know that wind up speed has no cap, and there are mods and auras that can reduce the wind up that stacks with Kullervo's passive. The weapon I chose for this build is the Tenet Livia. The bonus element doesn't matter. We're going to be heavy attacking with this. The reasoning for my choice is because it can pause combo counter when holstered. So when you're priming enemies, the combo is paused. Secondly, it's a two-handed Nikana. This is one of the 3 weapons which have the highest heavy attack multiplier that force procs slash. And why do we need to build up combo on this weapon? It's because heavy attacks get an additional multiplier when you build up your combo. And the arcanes for both builds will be Arcane Blessing, granting you a health multiplier when you pick up health orbs, giving you a total of 1,200 bonus health. And the second arcane is Molt Augmented. Kill enemies to grant you 60 additional strength at 250 stacks. The helmet for this build is Lyceth's Hunt. This is an active ability that has 2 functions. Enemies killed by headshots drop energy orbs, and melee kills drop health, both at a 50% rate per kill. These health orbs can be used passively for healing, but can be converted to energy with the mod Equilibrium. That's where the Panzer comes into play. You can pick up health orbs to get converted into energy, and vice versa, thanks to Equilibrium. You can prolong the duration of Lyceth's Hunt if you kill enemies affected by 5 or more status effects, easily done with a utility weapon priming the enemies. Taking a look at the build. In the aura, I have enemy radar. This gives me consistent enemy pings on the map, Prime Sure-Footed for the stagger and knockdown resistance. Even though you have Overguard, it's not guaranteed it's going to be up 100% of the time. So this way, I don't risk myself getting knocked down, because spending less time on your butt is a huge DPS increase. Range at 175%. This increases the range on my first and third ability to 43 meters, and the radius on my daggers to 14 meters. Prime Flow and Equilibrium for the energy pool and orb pickup conversion. I have Steel Fiber for the additional armor, which brings it up to 1007 total armor. Adaptation for the additional damage reduction, especially when my Overguard is down. Strength with Augur Secrets, pairing up with my Archon Shards to give me a total of 144% strength. Combine this with Molt Augmented, I am well over 200%. Perfect for my Collective Curse. And now onto the Tenant Livia. Since I don't need to mod for range or strength, the build is quite simple. Condition Overload for the base damage multiplier. Reflex Coil paired with Kullervo's passive to max out my heavy attack efficiency. My faction damage mod to multiply all my damage. Life Strike for some additional healing since it counts as a heavy attack. I have Amalgam Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might for the additional crit damage. I'm above 400% crit chance, so I need to multiply all the damage I deal when I crit. All of this brings my wind-up speed to 0.3 seconds. Prime Fury and Quickening for attack speed, but Quickening has a passive, granting me 20% chance to gain additional combo. If you feel like you don't need Life Strike, you can put Dispatch Overdrive for some additional movement speed. Moving on to build number 2. This build uses the same arcanes, but this time it's more focused on his fourth ability, so I replaced his first for Nourish. Nourish isn't used for the viral elemental damage on your weapons, but for the energy income multiplier and viral retaliation when you take health damage. This happens when your Overguard breaks, as it doesn't trigger on your Overguard. This retaliation staggers enemies while proccing viral. How this build works is quite simple. Cast your 4 in an area with an influx of enemies. Prime them with viral and spam your 3 into the incoming group of enemies and watch them simply die. This build has 200 kills per minute. It's damn insane. Let's take a look at the builds. Energy Siphon in the aura for that energy regeneration rate. My strength is at 149% because I did increase my range to the max thanks to Stretch, Augur Reach, and Overextended. So the strength on the build here is to counteract the negative strength we get from Overextended. Pairing this up with Molt Augmented, I have 100% damage spread with my Collective Curse. And this is it. It's a very simple loadout. And just to make all these builds even better, I would add 2 Amber Shards to give me that 50% casting speed. Unfortunately, I don't have any to spare. So with those 2 shards, you will simply replace Natural Talent for some additional duration. I tend to do most of the testing live on stream, so be sure to come and check me out. Otherwise, if you learned and enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.